Good morning. I am Cheryl with the Oklahoma Conservation Commission. I am in Bristow, outside of my office. I am working with Becky Zawalski, who is a team member of Blue Thumb. There she's waving to you. I wanted her to turn the camera around on her, but that may not happen. And Becky wonderfully came from Oklahoma City area to Bristow. We are going to do a video of me demonstrating non-point source pollution and non-point source pollution prevention with the EnviroScape. And I want to say to you, Becky and I, we are keeping our distance. If you see something get close, it's because she is manipulating her camera to make it close, because we are those good state employees that are watching our social distancing, who are paying attention. And I'm excited about how the state of Oklahoma is communicating with us, and I can guarantee you, Oklahoma, the state, cares about you, and we appreciate this opportunity to do some education online where we all stay safe. So, a lot of my job and Becky's job with the Blue Thumb Water Quality Education Program is to help people understand how to take good care of our streams and our rivers, of our wetlands and of our lakes. And that never goes out of style. So we want to give you an idea about a tool that we use called the EnviroScape. It is a small watershed model. And if that word watershed is new to you, and excuse some of the sounds, this is city life in Bristow. It's a small city. And you might hear birds, you might hear cats, you might hear some vehicles. So, but that's just kind of that native feel to the community. The EnviroScape is a small watershed. Anything that happens within the watershed can have an impact on the local streams and rivers. It's all about the lay of the land and what goes down. As you know, water flows downhill. So this is my small watershed. It's a small community. It's got a place to work. It's got homes. It's got streets. It's got a lake. It's got farming. So it's a tool to use to help people understand how they live in their watershed and what happens in that watershed. Now, the first thing I want to say, there's two things I like to say in the beginning of an EnviroScape demonstration. One of those things is, my little model here is all runoff. It is a piece of plastic, and there's no chance for water to soak in. The natural world, the real surface of the earth, is going to have some woodlands, it's going to have some prairies, it's going to have places that water can soak in. But this is a demonstration. It's not supposed to totally mimic the real world, and it can't really do that. But it can really give us food for thought. The other thing I want to point out is this. Pollution doesn't always have a color, but for the sake of dramatic presentation, my pollution today is going to have a color. That's going to enable us to better see and understand the movement of water, of rainfall, of potential pollutants over the surface of the earth and where it can end up. And we'll just go ahead and we will get started. Now, I have a couple of cats around me. One's Fuzzler, one's little Nathan, so I may kind of address them as we go. I might say, Nathan, have you had anything to eat today? And Nathan's going to think about that and think, well, yes, I had a nice breakfast. Well, who do we have to thank for the nice breakfast? And if I'm talking to a group of 5th graders, they're probably going to say, the lunchroom ladies, my mom, my grandma, my uncle stopped and got me a breakfast biscuit. But I want you to take that thought back a little further. If you have had a good breakfast or you're looking forward to a good lunch, you have a farmer to thank. So here's our farm on the EnviroScape. And where's my earth? Excuse me. We are going to represent the farm and that we've been plowing and planting. And I'm going to sprinkle some nice soil right here just to represent the farm, okay? And also we have going on up here in the corner a new construction site. I'm going to say it's a new Brahms because I'd like to see Bristow get a Brahms. But we haven't been planting food here, but we have been leveling. We have been scraping the earth so that that new Brahms can go in. So I'm just going to put that right up there too. So these are things that happen in day-to-day life. And so we're going to kind of cover this as both urban and rural. So, a lot of times I have a group of children around me. This is perfect with a group of about 10 children. I don't have that today, but there's a lot of days I do. And you know, you can ask someone from Blue Thumb to come out and work with you and with students on this, with a neighborhood association with this model, with your garden center club. We love it when people invite us out. So just keep that in mind as we go. Now I'm going to go back to topic. All right, we got a farm. Since I don't have a 5th grader to help me with farming, we're just going to add some fertilizer to the farm, because not only is our farmer growing fruits and vegetables for home use, this farmer is hoping to make a living out of raising crops. So I'm going to add some fertilizer to the farm. But also we're going to think about this. I have another kind of fertilizer too. Maybe in the city we might have a golf course. So we want to put some fertilizer on there, because we know that the golfers and a lot of people like that nice bright green grass. And so there we go. We got a little bit. And you know what? Hey, let's say someone lives right here by the golf course. Let's put a little fertilizer on their lawn too, because they have certain standards to keep up with living so close to that golf course. All right, now we are also going to say that out here on the farm, our farmer's concerned and doesn't want a bunch of pests eating the crops. All right, so we're not going to have the pests eat the crops. We're going to put a little pesticide down. Anytime a word ends inside, you want to pause and think about what it does. And in this case, this pesticide is going to get rid of the bugs, let's say, that might be eating on the crops. Not really a good thing. And let's say this. Some of the golfers said, hey, we got dandelions coming up on the golf course. That's not good. Now, I personally, when I see those dandelions, I think that's really nice. That is an early spring food for pollinators, like our bees and our butterflies. I like it when I see those. But let's just go ahead and go with it that the golf course says, no, we're going to get rid of those. So we're putting out an herbicide, which is still falls under that Brad category of a pesticide. And then here's another thing. Look, my dog, little Ralphie, he's little. Little Ralphie came home scratching for fleas. I want to be a responsible pet owner. I said, Ralphie, what's wrong, fella? And little Ralphie's scratching for fleas. So I think, I don't think very long or hard. I just go get me some flea and tick killer. I put it around the house, because little Ralphie, I don't want Ralphie uncomfortable. All right, now, so these are just a few ways things end up on the surface of the earth. Let's keep going. When Becky and I get done with this video, we're gonna, and pretending that we aren't trying to manage for coronavirus, we might jump in the car and say, hey, let's go to Brahms and get some ice creamery treat. Oh, Brahms isn't in Bristol, we're gonna have to travel a little further. And as we're traveling, the car overheats. We get antifreeze on the road. Oh boy. And what if we see people, as we're pulling over to see what's going on with our car, the people driving past us on the other road, they're dripping oil. Not good. Okay. And so what if we have some folks painting in the bedroom up here? They've worked hard all day long, and then they say, you know what? Let's just go ahead and pour the paint out in the street. But you know what? Like, you can wash all that paint out right in the sink. We don't like that they did that, but they did it. And you know, something else that we could talk a little bit about is if we have the cows out on the farm and the sheep, they have access right to the creek. If these guys are going to the bathroom, and they may well be out in the creek, we may be watchful, so we may get some manure in the creek, which kind of acts as a fertilizer. All right, so now lots of things happen on the surface of our earth here. Lots of things just happen. In the real world, you don't see it as plainly as it's laid out here on the EnviroScape model, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And so at this point, I like to ask students or whoever we're talking to, I like to say, well, where does your drinking water come from? We're going to think for a minute. Here in Bristol, some of the people are getting water out of Lake Hayward. where I live in Glenpool, we get our water from the city of Tulsa. That's going to be Lake Uchee, Lake Spavinaw, I believe, maybe Lake Hudson. So we need to be thinking about, where does our drinking water come from? So, and another thing we might think about is, where does our water go when we flush a toilet? That's kind of another topic, but we're going to just cover it really quick right here. Well, that water, when we flush that toilet, it's going to go to the wastewater treatment plant, where it gets some cleaning. Then after it reaches a certain level of cleanliness, it's going to be released into a natural stream, where the natural world will still work on that and help to clean it. It is not released filled with pollutants. I want to be sure you know that. All right, so we got some things that are happening here on the farm, in the city, on the streets, in new construction. We're going to have a big rain come down. Here comes the big rain. And keep in mind now, I told you that in the real world we would have some opportunities for collecting water and soaking it in. But in our little model right here, we don't have that, but we're just getting a point across. Getting a point across. And I say that to the people who are listening to me. I make sure they know that it's not this direct, this frightening. Wow, so we've had some rain. We've had a big rain. Our lake is filled now. Our streams are filled now. But my point is, let's take a look at our lake. Just visualize this. Is our lake filled with the kind of water you want to drink? Doesn't look like good drinking water to me. Do our fish really? Are they going to thrive in this kind of water? No. And this can be a powerful moment when you're talking with people, with children or adults, to say, who caused these problems? And if I have had everybody in my audience who's helping me with the demonstration, so they have an investment a little bit, they feel an investment because they might have put that fertilizer on the golf course, they might have put that pesticide around the yard so little Ralphie quit scratching for fleas. The obvious answer when I say, who caused these problems? We did. And you know, we feel kind of, we're questioning some things. And so I like to follow that up with, did we mean to? And no, nobody really meant to. Nobody wants polluted water. And the beautiful thing here is, there is something we can do about this. This is known as non-point source pollution. This is the kind of pollution that comes from lots of different places. Frequently it's going to come in small amounts, but if a lot of people contribute to it, then it becomes a problem. And it can be a problem in urban areas where lots of people are together. So non-point source pollution, that is what has affected our lake and our streams right here. And that this is a portion of the lesson that we want people to know, is where does pollution come from? It's not just from factories. It's not just from agricultural settings, and it's not just from urban. It's all of us together. But the beauty is there's things we can do about this, and this is actually the main part of the presentation, is what can we do, how can we do it? I want to start with soil. Soil, isn't this a natural product? Why would it be a problem getting in our water? Soil is natural. So I like to leave people with that. And there's some good thoughts that come with this. Some people will say, well, it's not a problem. But actually it is. When human activities cause erosion to happen at a rapid scale, then this soil moving into our waterways, into our streams, into our lakes, it can definitely be a problem. Number one, we put some chemicals on our farm, and those chemicals could be sticking to individual soil particles. These soil particles can be a nucleus that other chemicals stick to. So we may be washing pesticides, we may be washing fertilizers into our lake without meaning to. And here's another thing. If we take up space in our lake with layers of sediment, then we are reducing our capacity to hold water in our lake. So these are things to keep in mind. And here's another thing. Have you ever waded in a stream, maybe as a child, and you felt the rocks beneath your feet? Well, think about those rocks. There's space on the bottom of these rocks. There's space to the sides of these rocks for little creatures to live, even little fish. If we get a layer of soil, of sediment that settles on that habitat, we have smothered their homes. And those homes are very necessary. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. So our construction site really should have had a silt fence up that would have helped to catch the eroding soil. And there's lots of other practices that construction sites can do. And we're going to focus on our farm, but because we had a lot of runoff from the farm. This type of farming, this traditional plowing and planting, we are seeing so many farmers in Oklahoma who are falling under a category of regenerative farmers or farmers that are participating in actions that help the soil to be healthy and stable and for there to be a lot of nutrients that can pass from the soil into plants. And this regenerative farming is going to help stop this kind of erosion. Now, there's a process called no-till, which means we don't plow the earth where it's just shaved and brown and waiting for rain to fall and erode it, but instead we leave a plant residue on the surface of the earth, and that can do wonders for farming, for conserving water, for protecting soil, for helping plants to be healthier because they grew in a healthier soil. And then we can use cover crops in off seasons that keep a cover on the earth. We have learned so many things, and we know that just going out there and breaking the earth isn't necessarily the best way to farm. We can leave that residue on the earth, protect it from erosion, and protect it from losing so much water vapor as it evaporates. We can do a much better job, and many of us in Oklahoma are doing a much better job. And you can look at our soil health page for the Oklahoma Conservation Commission and learn more about that too. So, we're seeing much and much less of this kind of pollution from sediment, from fertilizer, from pesticides, from farming activities. All right, now then, our car. This one is simple and easy. If our car is spewing out antifreeze and a rain comes, that's going to wash into our waterways. We all know antifreeze is toxic. We want to keep that out of the waterways. If our car is leaking oil, those oil drops can end up getting into our streams and rivers. We want to stop that from happening. Oil is a pollutant that we want to keep out of our waters. And so it's really simple. This is the question. Well, so what do we do if our automobiles aren't running right? We get them repaired. You know, and I like to tell people, you know, because I say, well, maybe we can't afford it. You know what? You make a car payment, you buy insurance, you fuel up your vehicle. Paying to get your vehicle fixed is just another piece of the deal when you're an automobile owner. Now, anytime, we're going to talk about some chemicals. Anytime I would be thinking about using a pesticide or a fertilizer in my own life, there is something very important that I would do first. And I like to give people with whom I'm talking a hint. What am I doing? I'm reading the label. I am educating myself. I am going, what will this do? Is this what I need? How do I use it safely? What are the amounts I should use? Do I really need it? And so I'm going to look at these. I'm going to learn a little bit about them. And now we're going to talk even a little bit more. Fertilizer. If fertilizer runs off the land and goes into the water, what is its impact? Well, fertilizer, what does it do on the land? It helps our crops grow. It helps our yards to be green. It is a nutrient, and in the water, it is a nutrient pollutant. So what's it going to have? What's its effect going to be when it goes into our lakes and streams? Well, that effect could be it's going to make something grow, and that's going to be the algae. Algae is going to grow. Wow, flying trash. Algae, and you know what? Every stream, river, and lake has algae. That's part of an ecosystem. But we shouldn't have too much algae. And if we get runoff from the farm, runoff from the golf course, runoff from the neighborhoods that carries fertilizer in it, that can have a negative impact on our waterways. So we want to keep these pollutants out of our streams and our rivers. Now I can tell you, in my yard, I use native plants that are very happy with the level of nutrients that my Oklahoma soil already has. And if I should decide to fertilize something, I just spot fertilize, like if I want my tomatoes to get in fertilizer. But I'm very careful with this. I don't want it to run off into our waterways. My other chemical I was talking about is that pesticide that we talked a little bit about, that CIDE. That means it's going to kill. So pesticide. When pesticide runs off the land and goes into the water, one of the big things that it can do that nobody intends for it to do is kill some of that small life in the water, especially our benthic macroinvertebrates. And you will see on our Blue Thumb Facebook page that we are posting information about fish and about those benthic macroinvertebrates. Benthic meaning in the water, macro meaning large enough to be seen by the naked eye, invertebrate, well, that's our critters, our bugs, our worms. They have an exoskeleton, they don't have a spine like we do. So these are the bugs of the world, the insects, the butterflies, the earthworms, the mussels that live in the water, the dragonflies that fly around, the June bugs, the bees, the butterflies. Those are invertebrates. Lots of our invertebrates start their life in the water as an aquatic larva. And then some of them stay in the water, some of them emerge to fly around. And so we don't want to kill those. Those are indicators of how our water's doing. If we don't have these benthic macroinvertebrates in the water, then we're not going to have little fish. If we don't have little fish, we're not going to have medium fish, and so on. And so not only are we able to talk about pollution with this model, we can talk about the whole food chain. So we don't want to let killing chemicals go into the water. We want the water to stay free of that. Not to mention, if we get these chemicals in our streams and rivers, and then eventually into our drinking water lakes, we don't want to be drinking those. So, once again, when I use native plants on my yard, I'm using plants that don't seem to mind the critters in Oklahoma, and they do okay. If they don't, I cut my losses maybe, because we want diversity in our world. We want diversity. We're healthier, we're stronger. If we have a world that's healthy for our insects, that's probably a world that's going to be healthy for us. So we have covered a few of these things. With paint, I would say, most paint you can wash down your sink. If you cannot wash it down your sink, call your fire department, call your stormwater group, and I know of several cities that take paint. Then there comes days that people can come in, they can pick out what they want and use paint. My last painting project, I just had a little paint left, gave it to a friend of mine. Next time I went to her house, her dog house was exactly that color. That made me feel good. That was a good read. That was a good use of something that could have been viewed by some as a wasteful thing. Now look at my cows here. My cows have the ability to wander down into the creek, and when they're standing there relaxing, they might have pooped or peed. They might have left a trail where there's going to be some erosion. And so, not a bad idea to maybe put up a fence, keep them out of our water, and then offer them an alternative water source. That's where you need to go to your local conservation district and USDA, Natural Resources Conservation Service. Lots of programs that offer information about that. Now we're at a place right now that we're going to talk for just a minute about some of the other creatures. I did that some with the macroinvertebrates, but let's just say that I have a child standing here and I say, Amy, what if I could shrink you this big, turn you into a squirrel, and you're a smart squirrel, where do you want to live? And she looks at my setup right here. She's thinking about this. Well, the best place for a squirrel to live is going to be in these trees. And And when Amy says that, I'm going to say, well, good job. You are a smart squirrel. Because you don't want to be a squirrel that lives in somebody's attic. People don't like that. You don't want to be a squirrel that lives in the barn because the farm cat might get you. So, this is the place for a squirrel. This is the riparian zone. This is the area of natural vegetation that is going to be found along a stream unless human activities or maybe the geology, it's rocks and bluffs instead of plants. But this is the area that will be found along a stream, riparian area, and it does good things for the water. Our riparian area, for one thing, all of these roots in the plants help stabilize the stream banks and keep the banks in place and keep them from eroding. This riparian zone is going to help filter out pollutants that move toward my stream. And it's also going to slow storm water so that it doesn't hit the banks in a big flush and tend to cause erosion. My riparian zone is going to cause shade to be over the water, and therefore the water is going to be cooler. Cooler water can hold more dissolved oxygen than warm water, and that's better for the fish. And here's where I like to take a deep breath. I am drawing oxygen out of the atmosphere, but our aquatic creatures draw oxygen out of the water. Cooler water makes more oxygen available to them. And a big deal is, if we have a riparian zone, we have a place for other creatures. And you know, we share this earth with other creatures. And that's an important concept for us to not forget. So, we just learned some things about reducing pollution and about being more aware. If we could take that knowledge and pair it with making a riparian zone all along these streams and around our lake, we would have done a lot to have helped protect our water resources. People who are aware and keeping that riparian zone in place, those are two big things. So picture the riparian zone all along the streams, putting shade out, helping to slow storm water, helping to filter pollution, keeping the water cooler. So that little squirrel that picked the home in the riparian zone can be joined by hummingbirds, by cardinals, by lizards, by turtles, by maybe a possum, maybe a flying squirrel. They're kind of cool, little flying squirrel. So if we have more riparian zones, we have cleaner water, we have more places for critters to live, and we have healthier streams and rivers and less erosion. So, now we talked today about non-point source pollution. I do want to add that there is another kind of pollution called point source, and here's our factory. All of us count on manufacturing. I'm wearing clothes that were made in a factory. When I drive through McDonald's, I get a plastic bag with a styrofoam container, and inside is my burger wrapped in another piece of paper. That is manufacturing. And so we're not ready to not have manufacturing. But typically, an industry is going to pull water in. It's going to use that water for processes. Then it's going to release water, and that is going to possibly have something in it. And so I'm just going to demonstrate that. So here's our factory, doing a little bit of its own polluting. But here's the deal. This factory is already abiding by city or state regulations because it is a point source, and some people will call that a permitted discharge. They've gone through the steps necessary to put out that discharge with something in it. So that's an important thing to know, the difference. This is the kind of pollution that is dealt with by laws, ordinances, regulations, and by governments. The non-point source pollution is the kind of pollution dealt with by helping people to be aware and helping people connect with the outdoors and understanding ecosystems and understanding that their actions have an impact. Now, when I decide that it's time for me to clean up my lake, I pull a plug. I can take my rain all that water goes down my drain. I can take my bottle, do a little pouring, and I can clean up this model pretty darn quick. But isn't that easy to clean up a real lake? Can you clean a real stream like that? You cannot. And so the point here being, it's so critically important for us to all be aware that our actions have an impact. And that's really kind of the core goal of the Blue Thumb program, is to help citizens gain an understanding that our actions have an impact. And Blue Thumb uses volunteers. They monitor streams, and they can even check out this model to educate people in their neighborhood, the local scout group. So if you're interested more in what you can do as a citizen to be a part of good work that helps protect the earth around us, and when we protect the earth around us, the waterways, the woodlands, the wildlife, the creatures, we are looking ahead into the future so that the people who come after us will have a place and will have resources that they too will find important, and we want them to learn to connect and do the same kind of protection. So thank you for being with myself and Becky today. Thank you for listening, and keep in mind that if you're a Blue Thumb volunteer, this is a tool available for you to use. And if you're not a volunteer, well, check us out. We can work with you. We can put you to work and give you some work that you'll really enjoy. Thank you very much.